All right, we're back live on the Spin Cycle on this Monday. Andrew Southwick and RC Williams joining you today. Of course, if whatever you're watching this on, or as you begin to tune in, please, if you haven't, subscribe to the channel. Whether it's our Facebook channel, whether it's our YouTube channels, please do that. It helps the channel out, helps the show grow. We appreciate that. And as we're talking, this is an informal thing. We're not. Um, we will be looking for your comments. I realize some of you are bots anyway, but some of you are real also. And if you want to be a part of the conversation, leave your comment below, and if we can, we will address that as we go. But RC, how's your weekend been? You doing all right?
Doing great, man. So just making moves on the Watchman Action Network. What we're doing right now is getting it ready to go on social. So you may occasionally see the Watchman Action Network 24/7 pop up on our Rumble channel, also our YouTube channel, and on X. So it's been a weekend full of goodies, Andrew, and just we're excited about the network. And we've talked about this offline, but I think our family's our family watching, and we have some really exciting plans on what we're able to create based on our ability to do what we need to do with our own network. So we're really excited about what's coming for people here in the near future with the Watchman Action Network, what that means for the Spin Cycle, for Culture Crossroads, for all of us, and some great content creators that are actually going to join us on this journey for the kingdom.
Super. Well, let's get into it today, man. First story right here. Oh, I took it off the stage. I meant to bring it on the stage. There it
There it is.
is. That's the wrong layout. Of course it would be. There we go. FDA
There
says
we go.
positive cyclospora test on Taylor Farms lettuce was an error. Yes, we were all told that the cyclospora, what do they call it? The explosive diarrhea, as it were, that was linked to lettuce from Taco Bell in like Michigan, and that it was also linked to, for example, in North Carolina, cilantro and parsley, and there was emerging evidence over the weekend, or apparently evidence over the weekend, that some positive tests had come from Taylor Farms out of California, and that was the source of the multi-state outbreak. The Food and Drug Administration, this from the article, said the error was identified after its experts reviewed the sample from Taylor Farms, which had earlier removed all iceberg lettuce sourced from central Mexico from the U.S. market. It means there are no confirmed positive sample results for the infection, which causes explosive diarrhea tied to the recent outbreak, which has sickened thousands of Americans. A spokesperson for Taylor Farms said the FDA had apologized to us, quote unquote, and the company remains, quote, committed to working with public health authorities. Okay, RC, we got cyclospora. It's got to come from somewhere. And again, this is because they're getting fecal matter in the water and then spraying it on the crops. This is happening somewhere, and it's getting into our food supply. What the heck?
Yeah, Andrew, from our research on our side, as best we can gather, is that this lettuce that is infected is coming from or has come from Mexico. I think many people know that already, but part of this logic is that when that happens, folks who are working in the field that don't have facilities, so to speak, or just kind of doing their business in the fields, that gets watered, you get drainage, eventually that ends up getting sprayed onto various crops, and then they get shipped. Unsanitary conditions will get you each and every time. As many folks who watch the show know, Juliana and I are huge fans of the History Channel, and you watch some of these, The Food That Built America or the Men That Built America, and you see what things were like, 100 years ago. There was actually a story last night about how in New York City, when a horse fell in the street and was sick or ill or whatever and died, they would actually leave it there to start to decompose because it was easier to saw it into pieces and get it off the street. Well, as you can imagine, when you do something like that, uh, viruses, bacteria, sickness is going to spread like crazy. So when you have a situation like you potentially have in Mexico, it's very easy to see how that happens. And Andrew, we talked about this last week, and we were ragging pretty hard on the CDC. I don't think it's fair that we don't also rag on the FDA, in addition to the CDC, about what happened. I mean, again, do false tests and false positives happen? Sure. I think my concern remains the same as it did last week: is who's manning who's at the helm here? Earl Nightingale said long ago that if you were on a ship and you went up to the captain and said, "Hey, where are we headed? What's your port of call?" He would know exactly where he was going, exactly how he was going to get there, and be pretty close to the time that he was going to get there. That's good stewardship. And I wonder, even in a world that moves fast paced with basically endless resources, how can we not get this pinpoint when your entire job is to do that exact thing? I mean, that really gives me pause.
In a July 17 statement, the FDA and CDC warned Taco Bell customers in Indiana, Kentucky, Michigan, Ohio, and West Virginia not to eat shredded iceberg lettuce from any of the fast food chains locations in those 5 states. The agencies also said they were looking into possible causes of infections in other states, which officials said was, quote, unrelated to the 5 state outbreak. The statement identified a single supplier, Taylor Farms de Mexico, which provided shredded lettuce used by Taco Bell locations where sick people ate before becoming ill. Taylor Farm said it had voluntarily recalled all iceberg lettuce sourced from central Mexico out of an abundance of caution based on the FDA's initial information, and they said they had stopped using the affected lettuce indefinitely. And of course, there's your cyclosporiasis. Thank you very much. There's the map of where it is laid out over the U.S. So I guess if you want to eat lettuce, it might be a good time to go to North or South Dakota or possibly Montana for that Crunchwrap Supreme.
So
Now,
Andrew,
yeah,
sorry, just 1 second here on
yeah.
this. So this is important, right? If we know that it's iceberg lettuce that came from Taylor Farms out of Mexico, are are they only supplying Taco Bell? Right? That's the
But
question
but
I have.
but we don't know if it's come from Taylor Farms, and officially it didn't come from Taylor Farms because the FDA has contradicted that report, saying they apparently they ran some new tests and found out they made an error, and the cyclospora did not come from Taylor Farms lettuce. That's from the FDA. So to your earlier point, yeah, we don't know where it comes from, and it is interesting. We can pinpoint where your eyes are looking when you are driving your car, where your hands are, whether or not you're sneezing, whether or not you're driving erratically, et cetera, et cetera. We can pinpoint people out of a crowd to arrest them for January 6th, but we can't trace this infection, this parasite back to where it comes from. And it is you do have to wonder, like, well, what is the problem? I think even if there wasn't an answer, maybe there really are several suspects that have to be ruled out. I don't know. The outbreak has been going on for quite some time. You would think we'd be getting close to finding the point of, or the point of origin. But
Sure.
even if there is some confusion, you would think that the FDA or the CDC would have some kind of update to let us know that, because again, we already think, I mean, America, we are so skeptical of all of our rulers and all of our institutions. I'm sure there are plenty of Americans that think, well, of course they're now just poisoning the crops. They don't even care. I mean, I'm not making that assertion, but you got to know that people are like, well, of course they would. They put
Yeah.
poison in our food anyway with the chemicals. Why not? Why not just spray some fecal matter on it for good measure?
I the we've said the line so many times about how these guys can come down on me and you if I give you $1 in cash. Uncle Sugar can come right down on us and get his 30 cents. That they can do all of these things, or pick someone out from January 6th, or pinpoint something else, or get it really wrong with a flock camera. Yet, when it comes to something like this, a job that actually needs to be done, they're like Scooby Doo. I mean, that's the response that we get, and I guess, Andrew, what we have to do, like we've done with mass shootings and everything like that, is we just have to keep asking the obvious questions, already knowing the answer, but I guess we just have to keep putting it into the ether so that the algorithms will actually pick it up. And maybe we need to reset it. It's like, problem solved as to why the FDA can't do their job. Here it is. Like, do we
Mm-hmm.
have to like jazz it up for the algorithms? So they're like, oh, people should pay attention to that. It's sad, Andrew, because I then roll back my mind to COVID and how the people who are running things now were probably still around to some degree then, and just made this endless series of bad decisions or paid decisions that impacted the average everyday person in many instances in the most negative way possible. There are still people and things that have not recovered from that insanity, including our federal budget. Um, I just, it should give people pause, because Congress creates these things, these agencies, right? And they do it so that they can get things done that they can't do. And then you start to ask yourself, then, well, who runs the bureaucratic process? Because obviously Congress isn't paying attention, and they probably won't for a couple more weeks until they decide to come back to work and maybe bring somebody up on Capitol Hill that will basically read a canned statement from a PR firm that's probably getting money from the government, and then it'll all go away. This is the ongoing frustration, Andrew, and why the spin cycle is so important, because we have to talk about this stuff literally every day for it to stick, for somebody to say, oh, wait a minute. That doesn't sound good. I should probably do something about that. So get to it. Get to it, everybody.
Well, I guess we're still waiting to find out where the Cyclospora is coming from. Apparently, it's not Taylor Farms. That's the official line today. We'll see what it is tomorrow. All right, moving on. The U.S. launches more airstrikes against Iran after announcing, unfortunately, another death of a service member. From the article, the United States conducted a new round of airstrikes early Monday targeting Iran after announcing the death of another American service member, and Iran fired missiles toward Jordan that risked widening the conflict into neighboring Israel. Step by step, the U.S. and Iran have inched closer to an all-out war, as last month's interim deal meant to permanently end the fighting has crumbled. That deal lasted about 3.5 seconds. I have had. No, I'm not even going to. Never mind. I'll just keep going. The fighting is crumbling, and shipping traffic in the Strait of Hormuz has largely stalled. So the stuff that was working before is not working now. Both sides have targeted civilian infrastructure relied on by millions of people, while benchmark Brent crude rose Monday to above $90 a barrel, further fueling a global energy crisis sparked by conflict. President Donald Trump said, "We hit them very hard again tonight, and we did that in honor of the soldiers killed." Again, a ninth night of Iran strikes. So, is there any end in sight here to our war that's not a war in Iran? And I'm still looking again. What are we there for again? How do we know when we win?
Andrew, we are in now towards the end of the 13th round in a 15-round heavyweight fight, and we've let the bum hang around, which is why we're in the 13th round, and we're taking shots, but we just can't seem to knock them out and end this thing. They just keep coming back. We give them a door, whatever. It's like we keep going in this cycle. Now, I'm going to share this. I will not share the person's name, but yesterday I had a very enlightening conversation with someone who has an intimate understanding of what happens outside of the United States. And these are things that we inherently knew, Andrew. We've talked about them on the show. But what was shared with me around this in particular is really important. People believe that President Trump and the administration are having an impact on Iran. But what they forget is that a black market for Iranian oil has been around really since 1976. So one of the reasons that Iran isn't hurting as bad as people think they should be is because there's an entire global black market or shadow market for their oil, China being the most obvious of the destinations, and they're always going to help to rebuild infrastructure or whatever they need so that oil continues to flow. But believe it or not, one of the other big importers of that oil is Japan. So that's part one. So understand that we can do this, and then you start to ask yourself, how much of it is performative? And it's sad when I say that, because American soldiers are actually losing their lives. Like, here we go again. So let's bomb them harder because we made bad strategic decisions and we underestimated our enemy, which I think is part of what's going on here, which is really hard to admit in leadership. But if you don't, then you never solve the problem. But I digress.
And of course, the Strait of Hormuz remains a key, to this conflict. Trump threatened to target Iran's power stations and bridges to try to compel Tehran to loosen its hold on the Strait of Hormuz, which saw 1/5 of the global oil supplies transit before the war. Recent attacks suggest the U.S. military is now carrying out that plan. The U.S. in the past week reimposed a naval blockade on Iranian ports to halt its shipments of crude oil. The military on Saturday said it had redirected 6 ships and disabled 1 since then. Now, the halfway point has passed in the 60 days since the deal set out to negotiate the permanent end of the war and other issues including Iran's nuclear program. Okay, so the 60-day thing, that goes back to the War Powers Act. So the president has initiated hostilities in another country. He does not, and did not, and is not pursuing congressional authority to declare war. And of course, our Congress hasn't officially declared a war since World War II. We've just had 80 wars that were not congressionally authorized. You can do with that information what you will, but there is a 60-day window in which the president has to inform Congress, make his case, and then declare war. The end of the first 60-day window, and then we had the memorandum of understanding, which is that permanent, quote unquote, permanent deal that is being talked about in the article. That deal, of course, then reset the 60-day clock. So now we're in the middle of a new 60-day clock. And I would imagine, wouldn't you, RC, that there's some other deal coming in 30 days that will last about 3 minutes, and we'll be right back here a couple of months from now.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's like the gift that keeps on giving, or the grift that keeps on grifting, because you also have to ask yourself the obvious question. War is always good for business, and as Gerald Celente always says, when all else fails, you take them to war. Here's the other thing that I picked up yesterday, Andrew. A lot of people, BRICS has kind of floated its way out of the news. The other part of this is that BRICS' position is actually very strong right now. They are organized and they are really working outside of the SWIFT and the US system. According to my source, the Trump administration absolutely hates it, to the point where they're trying to apply the traditional pressure. This is one of the challenges I think you have with Peter Navarro and others in that class advising the president on these things, because they're basically partying like it's 1989. Let's put some tariffs on them. Let's give them the heavy hand. Well, we don't have the heavy hand anymore, and you can't control all the outcomes. You get frustrated. Here's the deal, and my understanding, directly from someone who deals with this on a daily basis, is that BRICS is strong, and they're simply trading and working outside of any system that the US can get their hands on. Therefore, Iran continues to generate revenue, get resupplied, able to fortify themselves, I guess, as best they can, and you just kind of end up in this stalemate. So I think people have just kind of forgotten about BRICS. It doesn't really get talked about much in the US news anymore. But you should be paying attention to what's going on outside of the bubble that you're in. Here's the thing, Andrew. Is it a battle that can be won? Sure. But I go back to your question. Why are we actually there? Apparently, we did what we were supposed to do. Why are we still doing this? And whatever we're doing, isn't our goal to actually get in, do what we got to do, and get out as expeditiously as possible? Now, credit to George Bush Sr., who I rarely give credit to. When he dealt with Desert Storm, it got dealt with, right? I mean, it was one of the most hilarious things is when the Minister of Information for Iraq was saying, "Oh, the Americans will never get here," and you can see him in the back. You know, I mean, it's like, but he handled business, okay? I don't know what's going on here beyond that, because there's just some intelligence we don't have access to. But if you're not willing to pose the question about how the world's strongest military can't deliver a knockout blow in an efficient way and restore order, then what are we doing, right? This isn't a monarchy. It's not a dictatorship. It's a constitutional republic, and we have a right to ask those who we send to represent us what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Yeah, and we don't have that answer. I don't know that we will, at least for a little while. All right, last story here for this installment. Kentucky governor says he received 2 calls from agencies indicating that Senator Mitch McConnell had passed. This is a report from Saturday. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, first of all, we are not reporting that he has died. We're commenting on this article. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear said this week he received 2 calls from agencies suggesting that Senator Mitch McConnell, the Republican from Kentucky, died while he was in the hospital. In an interview with Katie Couric uploaded to YouTube on Thursday, Beshear, who was a Democrat, did not specify which agencies called him with the news when the calls were made. In fact, this is a quote from the governor. "In fact, I've gotten 2 calls from different agencies, not state agencies, suggesting he's passed." Fox reached out for comment. I guess they haven't heard anything yet. Mitch McConnell has been hospitalized for nearly a month, and his office released a lengthy statement July 12th saying he was being treated for a fall that occurred in June. And a picture of him in a hospital bed alongside his wife has been released. And of course, you've seen it has been maimed and maimed and maimed to no end as we await word on what's going on with Mr. McConnell, Senator McConnell. So, RC, now there are no official reports that Mitch McConnell's passed away. For all we know, he's alive, and that's the assumption. That would be the anything to report today. But is there anything to this, or is Kentucky Bashir, do you think, trying to make some? I mean, I don't know what political gain he would have from making this kind of assertion. I'm not saying that it's true. I'm not sure what Bashir's end game is to even say that out loud.
Yeah, Andrew, it's a good point. I mean, Governor Bashir, who's a Democrat and who I don't necessarily agree with, doesn't really gain anything from.
Hold on, you froze up here. You froze up. Maybe go out and come back in. I see. Yeah, this is what happens. Hey, man, this is live in real time, and I
Am I
apparently.
back?
Oh, hold on. Wait, you're moving again. You're moving again, just like
Hey, am
Mitch
I back?
McConnell. We thought you were dead, but now you're alive, Mr. McConnell. All right.
Okay, I'm back. Okay.
Start over from the beginning.
Yeah. So, Governor Bashir doesn't really gain much from this because he's actually in line for a presidential run. He's managed to become a Democrat governor in a heavily Republican state, and he seems to check all the boxes. So it is interesting to me that he would make a comment like that. But here's the other thing, Andrew, that's interesting. Mitch McConnell's office put out a statement that he's being treated, and that's fine. But how come, if the sitting governor of the state where the senator is from makes an inquiry, it doesn't matter whether Democrat or Republican, why would you not address that directly with the governor of the state? This is silly. Listen, if Mitch McConnell's being treated, fine, but she should probably communicate with people and let them know that, in particular, the residents of the state of Kentucky, because that is their representative, right? And his vote is a vote that I guess matters within the structure. The fact that it comes out this way is a mess, Andrew. It's just this whole thing is a mess, and it's crazy to me.
And I mean, he's a sitting senator, so the mystery surrounding his health, and of course, one of the reasons I think why it gets traction is he is, 8,048 years old. I mean, he's not clearly not buying green bananas. He's not buying Tootsie Pops either. He doesn't have time for the 3 licks, right? So with that too, though, there is there are ramifications and effects from just not knowing his status, and not only for that seat, but as you mentioned, for his votes as well. If you're, I mean, what do you think is the point behind the shrouded in secrecy or the lack of detail from the McConnell camp?
Andrew, I mean, the only logic here is that they're holding for some reason, because there's no other logical reason for this, right? It's like, what are you holding for? I believe that there are structures in Kentucky where the date of August 3rd is really important. And I think it's around Governor Bashir's powers in the event that he has to replace a senator. He gets a choice, I believe, in Kentucky. He can appoint whoever he wants. It can be a Democrat. But then after August 3rd, it has to go to an election. And I think that if something is wrong, this is probably what McConnell's camp or others are waiting for. But even if that's the case, I mean, come on, guys. Like, there is the public interest in this whole thing, and a sitting senator who is a senior member of the Senate, something as simple as his status is important. And look, if it's not favorable to you, whatever, but you can't. Anytime that we do this and we tribalize and pick a side, the thing that suffers each and every time is the Constitution of the United States, the integrity of the constitutional republic, and the Constitution and the governance of the state that's being affected. If we keep playing this game because our guy or our girl is winning, the thing that loses is the very thing that's going to protect you when the coin is flipped on the other side. People need to stop playing around with this and stop playing partisan politics, in all honesty. Look, if the guy's healthy, great. If he's not, great. We just need to get it dealt with.
The through line to all 3 stories that we talked about today is the lack of communication from our leaders. Correct. It really is. The Cyclospora outbreak, we don't have any communication as to what's going on, and the only thing that we did apparently is not true. But then we also, with the track record of the CDC and the FDA lying to us, we have to wonder if that's true, and what other ulterior motives there might be there. The purpose of the Iran war, we're still waiting on that to fix in on a clear objective other than no nukes, which we're told they don't have, so, and can't get. So that should be mission accomplished, but it isn't. Why? We don't have that answer. And then, of course, with Mitch McConnell, not that we need to be all up in every piece of his business. Even our senators, yes, they are public figures, but they are entitled to a certain degree of privacy that should be protected and respected. But nonetheless, at the same time, the information that the American people need to know about one of their most long-standing and powerful leaders in DC, and again shrouded in secrecy as well. So and it is a dangerous, it's a dangerous practice that we are being normalized to and conditioned to accept, because this whole idea of the government's not going to explain itself to us is taking on too many forms in too many ways. And I think we need to be paying attention to that as well, and pushing back against that and demanding transparency where it is. So far, we're slipping further and further into smoke-filled back rooms and shadows, and don't worry about it. And you have to vote for it to find out what's in it, or you have to pass it to find out what's in it, right? All right, RC, give you the last word on that, but also remind people where they can find Watchman Action goodies and like materials.
Yeah, Andrew, again, in a self-governing society, you are in the chapter that is self-governing. What you do or don't do in the instances of these 3 stories where you're not getting the communication from those you send to represent you, if you don't deal with that now, you will not have a chance to deal with it later. Now I'm off my soapbox. If you want to find all things Watchman Action, start at watchmanaction.org. Also, the Watchman Action Network 24/7. It is on channel 40 on the Epic cable system in North Dakota, spreading other places soon. Distribution channels continue to be worked. You can also now find us live streaming on the Watchman Action Rumble channel. You can also find us on the YouTube channel and on X. All the handles are Watchman Action. Super easy to find. We'd love your commentary and everything like that. You can see the Spin Cycle, Culture Crossroads, the Watchman Brief, all of our specials, all of our training, all in one place there. But everything starts at watchmanaction.org.
And of course, Spin Cycle you can see every day. And I am not as cool with one title fits all. Because the main show is Culture Crossroads. That is Sundays, 5 p.m. Central Time on the Beck News Network. That's BeckTV.plus, BEKTV.plus. You can also find that on our YouTube page at Culture Crossroads 316, at Culture Crossroads 316, or on Facebook, 2 different places, The Culture Crossroads with Andrew Southwick or Andrew Southwick Official. You can find us there. All right, that's going to do it for today's Spin Cycle. We'll see you again tomorrow. God bless until then.